Okay guys, so what we have here is probably the hottest JDM bait finesse reel at the moment, and that is the 2020 DAIWA Alphas Air TW. Now this reel more than likely set new standards in ultra lightweight lure castability, and I proved that by being able to cast a 1 gram Trout Magnet with this reel without any kind of aftermarket parts. But the question is, just because it can do that, does that make this reel the overall best bait finesse reel in the world? And in order to be the best, you have to beat the best. And in my opinion, currently, right now, at least for now, the best bait finesse reel in the world all around still is the 2016 Shimano Aldebaran BFS. Now this reel is almost 5 years old, but when it came out it was pretty revolutionary, and we'll get more into that in a little bit. But what I plan to do is I plan to take both of these reels and mount them on the same rod and fish them side by side this winter for trout and maybe some bass, and see if the Alphas Air can dethrone the Aldebaran when it comes to overall bait finesse ability. But what you're looking at here is my highly modified Aldebaran with the shallow avail spool. I believe it's got one hybrid ceramic bearing in it. It's got extra magnets and whatnot, and it's been used hard for the past few years. So instead of, converting this back to stock, I bought an entire new Aldebaran bait finesse. I've been sitting on this reel for a couple of months now, waiting for the right time to do this video, and yeah. Now I hope there's nothing wrong with this reel, because like I said, I bought this a few months ago, and it's been sitting in its original, I guess, shipment wrapper, and if there's any kind of defects or flaws with this reel, it's probably going to be tough to try to get the vendor to take it back and exchange it. So let's cross our fingers. It is Shimano, so I don't think we'll have any problems. Here's the paperwork and whatnot. Yep, it comes with 2 oils. One is BFS oil, one is BANTAM oil, and I'm assuming this oil is for the micro bearings that come stock on the Aldebaran. Reel foot protectors. And yeah, here's the reel. Back when they still came in this bubble wrap. Alright, let's move all this off to the side. And yeah, looks good so far. Now I'm looking at it through the camera LCD screen, and I'm also trying to look at it above the camera to make sure I don't see any kind of flaws. But it looks good to me. Drag was tightened all the way. I don't know why they do that. Now it feels pretty much just like my other Aldebaran in the fact that it's not the smoothest reel out of the box when you're just sitting here turning the crank. But when you get out on the water and put some resistance on this, it gets noticeably smoother. So let me show you guys the comparison here, modified and stock. Now like I said, this reel is going on 5 years old, and I believe it's due for a refresh, probably not in 2021, because they have to come out with a new Aldebaran first before they come out with the bait finesse version. But Shimano Japan is always full of surprises, so they may come out with an all new standalone model to replace this one. But let me tell you my plans for this particular reel. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see if this reel can cast a Trout Magnet out of the box as good as the Alphas Air TW. Now, I never thought to even try that out because I always assumed this spool is just way too heavy. But you never know till you try. And if you recall, when I did the Alpha's Air TW Trout Magnet video, I only filled the line on the Alpha's not even halfway full. So I'm going to do the same with the Aldebaran BFS. I'm not going to fill the line all the way full, probably like halfway, and then we'll see what it can do. And I don't know if you guys remembered, but a couple of years ago I also tried to cast a Trout Magnet with this reel, the REVO LTX BF8, which currently still has the lightest BFS spool in the world, but I filled the spool all the way instead of just halfway. So I may even try to run that test with this reel as well, even though it looks to be discontinued and unavailable anywhere. But my curiosity definitely got the best of me. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can get the maximum performance out of this reel, and I'll show you guys what I mean here in a second. But remember how I said that the Aldebaran was pretty revolutionary when it came out about 5 years ago? Let's talk about why real quick. And it's all down to its brake system. Now, normally Shimano is known for their highly advanced centrifugal brake systems, but in this situation they actually shocked everybody by going with a magnetic system. But it wasn't just some generic old static magnetic system like the MagTrack system that Abu Garcia uses. They designed their own proprietary magnetic brake system that's dynamic, and they call it the FTB, or Finesse Tune Brake. Now I pulled the side plate off to show you guys just why this brake system is so special. Now, as you can see, it's very unusual. It's this circular hub, and there's two banks of magnets on each side. But this is a dynamic brake system, just like DAIWA's MagForce. And what that means is that during the cast, the distance between the magnets and the spool changes. And it changes by being spring-loaded on one side of each bank of magnets, as you can see right there. And what that does is it allows the magnets to get really close to the spool during the most crucial part of the cast, which is right at the beginning when the spool speed, spikes. But as the spool speed slows down, the magnets will retract back and not give as much braking force on the last half of the cast, giving you longer cast, at least in theory. Now, the benefit to that is that with this system, you can actually get away with having a heavier spool and still cast just as good as a much lighter spooled reel, as I've proven in this video right here, where the Shimano Aldebaran casted pretty much on par with the much lighter spooled REVO LTX BF8. And it outcasted DAIWA's SS Air, which has a lighter spool as well. And that's why the Fishband GH100, which copies Shimano's FTB system, can cast just as good as much lighter spooled reels like the KASTKING Zephyr and the Spirit Fox and the PW100, etc., etc. Now, one advantage that Shimano's FTB system has over DAIWA's MagForce style system is that this design allows Shimano to remove pretty much all braking mechanisms off the spool, which decreases the rotational mass, of course. Now, with DAIWA's MagForce style system, as I am going to show you with the SS Air spool, you see it uses this rotor that twists in and out to interact with the magnets, but this rotor itself adds almost 1 gram of rotational mass to the spool. Now, once again, with that being said, Shimano's BFS reels are the heaviest in their class, but Shimano, I think they did that on purpose this time around, because there are several ways they can shave weight off of this spool, like giving it an aluminum shaft, maybe thinning down the overall thickness of the spool itself, but you know, they can't give us everything at once. Now, after I do the Trout Magnet test, I'm going to see if I can extract more casting distance out of this reel without having to resort to aftermarket parts. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. Now, if you take a look here at the bank of magnets, you'll notice that looks like one magnet is missing on each bank. And Shimano did that on purpose. They actually give you extra magnets, and this time around looks like they gave me 3 instead of 2. So if you want maximum braking, you can just put one of these magnets into one of these slots, and that gives you the maximum amount of braking. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast without those 2 magnets and see if I can get any kind of noticeable distance increase. Now I was going to do that experiment with the GH100's clone, the Phantom, but unfortunately those magnets are glued in or something and they can't come off without, you know, risk of breaking the brake hub assembly. So I'm going to try it out with the Aldebaran. And of course I'm going to share that with you guys on camera, probably in a separate video. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if removing these magnets will increase performance, especially with, you know, regular weight BFS lures, not Trout Magnets. But I'm going to do that with the Trout Magnet too. Alright guys, so I'll see you out on the water to see if the Aldebaran can cast the Trout Magnet. Alright guys, so I'm finally able to get out on the water today, and we're finally going to see if the stock 2016 Shimano Aldebaran BFS can handle a bare Trout Magnet if I only fill the spool up halfway, just like I did with the DAIWA Alphas Air. Now I have the 2-pound mono on the Queen Teton TTC with the lure rating of 0.3 grams to 3 grams, and I've already tied on a bare Trout Magnet, no snap swivel, in pink, so hopefully it'll give you guys a better visual. I set up my spool tension to just minimize side-to-side play, and we're going to start off with the brakes jacked all the way up on 6, and I do have all magnets installed. Alright, let's see what happens. Okay, a lot better than I thought. Now it did go off to the left as expected, but it went out there probably 15 feet, maybe a little bit more. Let me try to adjust my aim, but I'm going to wait for this wind to die down. Alright, wind's finally died down. Let's try again. Alright, now by adjusting my release point, yeah, I went out there a pretty good distance. Now it still went off to the left a little bit. I still need to work on the release point adjustment, but that went out there probably close to 30 feet, and we're on max braking. So let's start backing these brakes down. We'll go to 5.5. Now hopefully you guys are seeing where this is landing, but so far I'm impressed. I thought it was really going to struggle. All right, let's do one more cast at 5.5. All right, so it went out there probably a good 10 yards, and I'm not seeing any kind of spool issues or line overrun. So let's go down to number 5 on the brakes. And I have to say, with this new Aldebaran that I have versus the old, turning the brake dial is a lot easier, a lot smoother. All right, the wind has died down. All right, it's still going off to the left, but distance was roughly the same. Wow, okay, so we're getting probably at least 35 to almost 40 foot right there. Now there is a slight backwind. I'm trying to wait until the wind dies down, but it's just pretty constant, and still no line overrun issues. So I think we are, for right now, at least matching that Alpha's air. And we're gonna go down on the brakes even more to, let's say, to 4.5. Okay, so the accuracy is still much better on the Alpha's air from what I can remember. Let me adjust my release point because I'm aiming out that way. So yeah, I got to release it real early, but the distance is pretty impressive. Maybe I didn't need to spend all that much money tuning up my old Aldebaran after all. There's a bunch of activity. I'm gonna see if I can catch whatever is eating that. All right, into the wind. I did see some loops. Oh, I thought I had a fish. I'm snagged. Yeah, but there's something feeding right here. But yeah, the stock Aldebaran is just super impressive. A lot better than I thought. I thought this reel would struggle with this little Trout Magnet. But it's just firing it out there. And once again, the spool is just halfway full. And I still got plenty of line left, but this is going out there probably at least 40 feet. All right, let's go back over here. Since whatever that is gone, so you guys can see where this thing is landing. So wow, it's got to be the brakes, because the spool is much heavier, at least a gram heavier than the Alphas. But once again, the Alphas has that over-braked air brake system, along with the fact that the spool is much smaller. Let's try to go down a little bit more on the brakes to 4. All right, the wind is kicking up again still. All right, it feels like it's died down. Okay, had some overrun on brake setting 4. Nothing major, but still something that I would have to pick out. Okay, so since 4 is too low, we're gonna go to, let's say, 4.25, so not quite halfway. And maybe this is the best setting. Oh yeah, I think we got the setting right there. No overrun, but the distance is still good. And I could be deceiving, you know, I could be catching a backwind, as you can see on the water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to move to a different spot where it's not so windy. And we'll see what this Aldebaran can do then. Okay guys, so I've come to a new spot that is pretty shielded from the wind, fortunately. And let's try this out again and see if we get any different results than from the previous spot that had some backwind. I see a bunch of minnows in here, and I wonder if there's any fish that might even take this Trout Magnet, but here we go. Once again, brakes are on 4.25 approximately. All right, same result. Same result. We got probably about 35 feet at least. It's still going off to the left a little, but the spool is still very controlled. No overruns. So that is impressive. I guess I should have never doubted Shimano's engineering. Now, is that farther than the Alpha's Air? I'm gonna say they're pretty close for now. Maybe the Shimano has a slight advantage just from my memory, but it's been a while since I've casted that Trout Magnet with the Alphas. What is it, almost 6 months ago? So, man, I am extremely impressed with the stock Aldebaran and its ability to cast a bare Trout Magnet. Oh, had to blow up there. With 2-pound line and half the spool filled. Okay, so I just had a blow up there, had an overrun, and even with this thin 2-pound line, the line kind of a little bit went between this frame and the spool, but it didn't go all the way through to where I had to take the side plate off. All right, a few more casts. Once again, that accuracy is not as good. That's that heavy spool for you. You kind of got to really adjust your cast and release point. Nothing wants a Trout Magnet, at least for this color. Maybe if I change the color up. All right, so I had a slight wind coming in, and that was just enough to give me a pretty decent overrun there. So I am pretty much on the limit right here. Of course, you could go up to 4.5, which I'm gonna do, get a little bit more braking, and maybe the distance won't be cut off as much. I think I lost maybe a foot or two of distance, but not a whole lot, but that is definitely doable. I'm thinking probably around 40 feet. Or close to it. Now the modified Aldebaran with the Avail spool was hitting probably around 50 feet. And accuracy was a lot easier or better. Basically a lot easier to cast straight. But when it comes to, you know, bait finesse, that stuff is very important. Especially when you're trying to be accurate in a little creek that has a bunch of snags and you're trying to cast a little Trout Magnet like this. All right, guys, I'm gonna change the color, see if I can get anything to bite one of these Trout Magnets. But if I can't, I will see you guys back at home for a, I guess, wrap up to this video.
Well, I got something. I made a cast right underneath the overhang of that boat and got this tiny little bass.
So today when I was driving out to the lake to do this video, let me tell you what I expected to happen. And the first thing is that the Aldebaran would cast the Trout Magnet way off to the left, and also probably not hit more than 30 feet. And the reason behind that is that I figured I'd have to jack the brakes all the way up to its maximum setting and really couldn't go down any lower than that, which would affect the trajectory and the distance, of course. But, you know, today the Aldebaran taught me that I should never underestimate Shimano's technology and engineering ever again, because not only did I hit probably a little bit over 40 feet on some casts, but I was actually able to turn the brakes down pretty low. Now, the accuracy and the trajectory does need some work, and that is the result of the spool still being relatively heavy, but it's nothing that I couldn't compensate for by, you know, adjusting my release point. But if you're in, you know, tight quarters in a creek or a stream and you need, you know, to do some short casting strokes, then that might be an issue. So does that mean that I wasted several $100s putting together this reel right here? And I'm gonna go ahead and say no. And the reason being is that while the stock Aldebaran did perform way better than I thought, this reel will still outcast it with that Trout Magnet probably by an average of 5 to 8 feet, and do it straighter as well. And in my opinion, when it comes to bait finesse, every foot counts in distance and accuracy. Now, I'm sure after watching the stock Aldebaran stunning performance with the Bear Trout Magnet that this video has probably butt triggered a lot of the fanboys of this reel right here, the 2020 DAIWA Alphas Air TW. And that's because after its own stunning performance with the Bear Trout Magnet, I'm pretty sure a lot of people just assumed that the Alphas Air TW was the best bait finesse reel in the world. But now you can see it's just not that clear anymore. Now, who handled the Trout Magnet better? Well, like I said, it's been a few months since I've casted the Alphas Air, but just from memory, I think the Aldebaran may have had the edge in distance, maybe by a foot or two, but when it came to ease of casting and accuracy, meaning the Trout Magnet went straighter, the edge, I believe, definitely goes to the Alphas Air. Now, of course, the best thing to do would be to cast them side by side on the same day, but that is going to be for another video, because I do plan on taking both of these reels, and all winter I'm going to be putting them head to head against each other, not only in casting, you know, a Trout Magnet, but we're going to be casting standard bait finesse lures, and we're going to be comparing other things as well. And of course, that's going to be done side by side. But that video is probably not going to come out for a couple of months. And also, due to time constraints, I was not able to retest the GARCIA REVO LTX. But I might do that in a future video. Now, before I put the Aldebaran up against the Alphas this winter, I am going to go ahead and put this reel through I guess a test where I remove 2 of the magnets, the ones that are removable, and see if that gives us any kind of performance increase. And that's going to be in an upcoming video. I may convert my modified Aldebaran to stock so I can do them side by side. But yeah, I'm very interested to see if removing 2 magnets will increase the already awesome performance of this reel. So one more thing before we end this video, and this is for all the guys who are wanting to buy an Aldebaran BFS, or if you already have one, or if you have a Calcutta Conquest BFS, and that is, don't be upset or disappointed if you can't duplicate the results that you see in this video unless you have a similar powered rod or rod with a very similar lure rating, and you're using 2-pound line. Now remember at the beginning of the video when I told you guys what I expected to happen, and that's because I was using a stiffer JDM BFS bass rod, as well as probably using 4 or 6 pound line filled all the way to the top. So unless you get a rod that has a very similar lure rating and use 2-pound line and fill the spool only halfway, you're probably going to be very disappointed with the results of trying to cast a Trout Magnet. Alright guys, there we go. Once again, Shimano has stunned me with their technology and engineering, and I'm never going to underestimate it again. Alright guys, thanks a lot.